was called the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth Tudor, Elizabeth I, literally, she who must be obeyed. And as such, she employed Sir John Dee. Dr. John Dee is the creator of Enochian magic, or the initiated ones. So Enochian magic is nothing more than the magic of the high ones, the magic of the initiated ones. And through Enochian magic, John Dee believed he could talk to the angels.
John Dee was one of the most brilliant thinkers of the 16th century. Dee became a key figure in the Elizabethan court and one of Queen Elizabeth's most trusted advisors. A true Renaissance man, he was at the forefront of scientific and philosophical thought in one of the great ages of learning and discovery. But all this was not enough. In his insatiable quest for knowledge, Dee strayed into the forbidden world of the occult.
I seek the treasure of heavenly wisdom and knowledge. So why do they condemn me as a companion of hellhounds and a conjurer of wicked and damned spirits?
He was trying to find the very essence of life. He was trying to find the secrets of the universe.
Angel magic, whatever Dee said, was black magic.
And for John Dee, that meant communing with angels, communing with demons, risking his soul.
He risked everything in his quest, and his diaries record how ultimately he became the instrument of forces beyond his control.
Using his wealth of occult knowledge in astrology, John Dee began predicting timeline events. He even started making predictions for when these major events would occur, such as the death of Queen Mary of England. When Queen Mary heard about his prediction and his practices, he was thrown into prison for 3 years for practicing black magic. When Queen Mary died in 1558, on the very day John Dee had predicted using his astrology, Queen Elizabeth I, her half-sister, rose to power and immediately freed John from prison, appointing him her top advisor and counsel.
Dee found fame and favor under Elizabeth, and she dubbed him "my noble intelligentsia," giving him license to work in complete freedom.
She gave official sanction to Dee, pretty much declaring that anything he did was white magic, divine magic, a form of science, and putting the royal seal on that.
Basically, Dee was in love with Elizabeth, as a lot of her courtiers were, but she had a strong link to him too. She clearly saw him as somebody who she could trust.
He was convinced there were hidden forces that govern the way the physical world works. But as the years passed, he began to despair of ever finding them.
For 40 years continually, with great pain, care, and cost, I have sought the best knowledge that man might attain in the world. I have found that neither any man living or book was able to teach me those truths I desired and longed for.
Dee has looked into mathematics, he's looked into astrology and astronomy, he's absorbed all these strands, but it still hasn't given him the thing that he wants. He now is prepared to go to the next step, which is to go deep into the occult, into hidden knowledge, in order to try to find these secrets.
Dee was at the point of giving up his quest when he made the discovery that changed the course of his life. The Steganographia is an infamous black magic manuscript written in the 15th century. The book was written in a coded language that contained many barbarous and strange names of spirits. It was believed that these spirits were the key to a reservoir of hidden knowledge. Dee's attempts at scrying yielded nothing until a man with a notorious reputation as a black magician appeared at Mortlake. His name was Edward Kelly.
Kelly was a strange, difficult, fractious, troublesome character. I mean, as soon as he came into Dee's life, Dee became involved in something that was way beyond his control.
If the ritual worked correctly, then entities would be summoned, at which point him and Dee would interrogate whatever had appeared to them.
Dee was excited and intrigued by Kelly's incredible visions. He was desperate to find out what and who these entities were.
Suddenly, this extraordinary cast of angelic characters erupted from the crystal ball that he used, from sort of coquettish young maids to these great giants with suns blazing from their eyes. Dee constantly struggled with the angels. I mean, he was constantly questioning whether or not he should believe them. He was questioning whether or not they were angels or whether in fact they were demons disguised as angels.
There are entities whose speech was so apocalyptic, so cold and beautiful and terrifying, that even to modern ears, this is scary stuff.
In his quest for knowledge, Dee tapped into the powers of the beyond, hoping to learn secrets from the spirit realm. He practiced much of his craft in secret as an active member of the Rosicrucians in England. Some even credit Dee with founding the modern Rosicrucian movement.
Amok. A for ancient. Traditionally speaking, the Rosicrucian order dates back to the mystery schools of ancient Egypt.
This is the headquarters of the modern Rosicrucian order.
The Rosicrucian order, with its modern headquarters in San Jose, California, has for centuries been linked to Freemasonry.
Rosicrucian orders within the Masons and the Illuminati.
Well, you have to understand that Freemasonry is simply the modern-day manifestation of the ancient mystery religions. The ideas of Masonry have been around literally for thousands of years. And, of course, Rosicrucianism was simply a forerunner of modern-day Masonry.
Like Masonry, the Rosicrucians traced their religion to the mysteries of ancient Egypt.
This country was founded by real Rosicrucians, not the Rosicrucians you see out there today.
Their power base in San Jose centers around an Egyptian museum.
When one follows the Rosicrucian trail, John Dee was a very, very key influence in historical Rosicrucians, and some say even the founder of it, the first president of it.
There are chapters of the Rosicrucians studying every place across America where they recruit people into the Rosicrucian order. People have no idea that these people are even here.
Nevertheless, the Rosicrucians are said to be the first of the secret orders to have opened a door in the New World.
The very first that we know of occult beachhead in America was Rosicrucian. To visit the Ephrata Cloister, it's called, in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, and it's where the original Rosicrucian community built its headquarters, right on the east coast of the United States, and that was in the 1600s.
Now, Sir John Dee worked closely with his confederates all over the globe. They employed the fraternity structure to ensure that only the chosen would be exposed to the real occult history of the world and to their role as the future leaders and thinkers. Overworld and underworld figures, educated and funded to adroitly lead the rest of mankind down whatever roads became necessary. In the tarot cards, for instance, the devil card is number 15. What they wanted has had the severest consequences for the future of mankind. The macrobes basically told him that what they wanted was blood. Blood has some very specific occult properties, and that's what the macrobes wanted. And John Dee, his reply was, how much do you want, and when do you want it? Whatever it takes. This thing is already going to take us hundreds of years. Whatever you need for that information, you will get it. And so John Dee literally put the whole of the human race up in a great black magic mask, a great rite to his overlords, the oversouls that were asking him for payment, literally, in blood. Since the first day of the first effusion of blood, it has never ceased to flow. Mankind has always believed in three things with an unconquerable faith: that the effusion of blood is necessary, that there is a manner of shedding blood which is purifying. History clearly attests these truths. It presents to us the narrative of cruel acts,
Boiling people in oil,
of the overflow and destruction of famous cities,
murdering entire cities,
of atrocious murders committed, of pure victims offered on blood-stained altars,
sacrificed more than 10,000.
of brothers warring against brothers, of the rich oppressing the poor,
They see you as animals.
until the earth appears to us like an immense sea sea of blood,
The royals drink blood.
which neither the piercing breath of the winds can dry up, nor the scorching rays of the sun can absorb.
They've always been predators.
The death toll is awesome.
Torture dungeons, mass
The
executions,
total of human
mass
lives lost
raping,
is
slavery, death and destruction.
18,200,000.
They're predators against their own species.
16,300,000
Sex slavery,
for a grand total
including women and children.
4 million
Cannibalism, burning people's eyes out with hot pokers.
They're obsessed with blood.
Communing with angelic beings that provide scientific knowledge was a familiar practice.
Now, there was a pretty very brief and shady dividing line between what they called scientific knowledge and what we might call outright witchcraft.
The secret societies of the Elizabethan era were in danger not for the knowledge they possessed, but how they obtained it through occult practices of summoning spirits and conjuring demons. They were, nevertheless, determined to continue for the cause of science and learning. Dr. John Dee led the way in this arena. His method became known as angel magic because of his contact with spirits that Dee believed were sometimes good and sometimes evil.
During the course of what became known as the angelic conversations, 70 different spirits would appear to Kelly. Some appeared human, others monstrous and demonic. They were angels they recognized from ancient versions of the Bible. But many of the spirits, like the beautiful coquettish maiden Medini, were mysterious and unheard of. Dee fervently recorded every last detail of the scrying sessions in his diary.
Dee was working in a world where it wasn't magic that he was doing, it was a science of angels. This is somebody approaching this unearthly territory with incredible scientific method.
And not only were the angels sort of interesting, they were delivering fantastic material. They seemed to be delivering some sort of coded message that would reveal the secrets of the universe.
Dee was now convinced that he was close to fulfilling his ultimate ambition, and the angelic conversations took over his life and work. Mortlake would never be the same again. Dee's young wife, Jane, detested Kelly. She believed that he was evil and that the angelic conversations would lead them to ruin.
Angel magic's an odd one. It is, despite wearing these ostentatious trappings of piety, at core black magic. In some ways, it's difficult to think of anything more blasphemous than trying to get the angels of the Lord to do your bidding.
And the angelic messages were delivered with even greater intensity. It seemed to Dee that his unshakable faith in the angels was about to be rewarded.
They are told that there's something, a powerful message is going to be dictated to them. The first angel begins to talk to them about a lost book of Enoch, which is the language of the angels, the original language spoken by Adam before the fall.
The angel told us, "I will open to thee the secrets of nature and the riches of the world, many thousand secrets in which you are still yet but children."
Letter by letter, the dictation of the Enochian language began. After months of scrying and hundreds of hours looking into the crystal ball, the angels revealed what appeared to be a completely new language.
To suppose that this is an invented language, invented by Kelly, you would have to suppose that Kelly was some sort of creative and linguistic genius who was able to spontaneously invent a functional working language complete with grammar and vocabulary, and not only invent it, but invent it backwards.
In a diary entry of June 8, 1584, Dee records a startling account when the angels tried to persuade him that Jesus was not God and that no prayers ought to be made to him. They further claimed that sin did not really exist and that man's soul simply moves from one body to another, in what sounds like reincarnation. Upon hearing this, Kelly was apparently distraught and believed they had contacted evil spirits. Nevertheless, the angels provided Dr. D with gifts of knowledge. D was the first to apply Euclidean geometry to navigation. He built the instruments for and trained the first-rate navigators. He is credited with coining the word Britannia, or Britain, and his influence laid the foundation for what would become the British Empire. He made his own maps and is said to have charted the northeast and northwest passages in his attempts to increase the wealth of England by gaining access to the New World.
His knowledge of navigation helped spearhead England's great age of exploration and discovery. He even coined the expression, the British Empire.
He provided the clearinghouse at Mortlake for all the latest navigational information, which formed the basis of the great age of exploration for English mariners across the Atlantic to the New World.
When the new queen took the throne, it marked the beginning of an unprecedented era in English history. During this time, the language of the New World would be transformed, ancient knowledge would unfold, and the course of the philosophic empire would be established. The modern world would be changed forever, largely because of Queen Elizabeth I.
Slavery was a powerful engine that drove the British economy. It allowed Britain's slave owners to amass extraordinary personal wealth.
Few people know that John Dee was the original Agent 007 in Her Majesty's Secret Service.
And if you study the symbol for MI5, you'll notice that it has a triangular pyramidical shape with the crown of the Queen, and it has a eye, the Enochian eye, at the northern apex.
Ian Fleming got the idea for his designation 007 for James Bond from the fact that that was how John Dee would sign his correspondence when he was overseas working as a spy for Queen Elizabeth. He would always sign his name 007. And that's where the concept came in for James Bond. Because James Bond was originally intended to be kind of a modern-day Dr. John Dee.
The opening and closing ceremonies for the 2012 Olympics in London were extremely significant to the occult world. Queen Elizabeth II and Daniel Craig came together to pay homage to the founders of the Rosicrucian and Freemason orders.
And when John Dee used to go on occasion to visit the royal houses of other countries, and when he'd write back to his mistress, she who must be obeyed, Elizabeth I, he'd always sign at the bottom of his documents 007. That was the sigil of the head of the MI5 of those days. And of course, that is later picked up in the stories of Ian Fleming. So the 007, the original, way back at the time of the Tudor dynasty, was Sir John Dee, master occultist.
Surrounded by illuminated pyramids, the Queen and James Bond 007.
James Bond epic, starring Daniel Craig and Her Majesty the Queen.
The careful conservation treatment of these three paintings has allowed us to learn really quite a lot more about the way they were painted and what they might well have meant to their first audiences. So with this picture, the so-called Phoenix portrait of Elizabeth I, the really very painstaking conservation treatment has brought the picture back to life, revealing original details that have been concealed for centuries.
Surrounded by illuminated pyramids, the Queen and James Bond 007 honor and venerate the flaming phoenix while paying homage to Queen Elizabeth I and Dr. John Dee, the mother and father of European and American sorcery.
In the modern world, Dee was the role model for J.K. Rowling's Albus Dumbledore in the Harry Potter books.
Witchcraft and wizardry.
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Is a phoenix, Harry. They burst into flame when it is time for them to die, and then they are reborn from the ashes.
America, the majestic and soaring eagle, has been hiding a highly combustible and flammable secret. The true nature of the so-called American eagle is really that of the phoenix, an infernal symbol handed down from an unseen realm through the secret occult brotherhoods in Europe, which not only financed the 13 colonies, but funded and guided the Revolutionary War. To the initiates, the eagle is merely a disguise, created to make the public feel safe so they do not fear the fiery destiny of this nation. New Egypt, Mystery Babylon, the last manifestation of the great whore of Babylon.
Even as Sir Francis Bacon and his contemporary, Dr. John Dee, were said to be in contact with the spirit realm, there are those who believe that it is this dimension that has been guiding the course of America and the so-called evolution of the dollar bill. This image shows what appears to be a wizened old man passing a lamp in the dead of night to a younger man in Elizabethan clothing. Baconians believe this old world engraving represents Dr. John Dee passing the lamp of esoteric knowledge and wisdom to his successor, Francis Bacon. Both Bacon and Dee were men of science, dedicated to the advancement of learning. Both men were members of the Rosicrucian Society, of which Bacon would become the chief. Like Bacon, John Dee believed that America was indeed the lost continent of Atlantis. But where did he get this idea? Was it given to him by his angels? And did he pass this concept on to Francis Bacon? This 1910 Newfoundland stamp commemorates Bacon's early influence. It reads, Lord Bacon, the guiding spirit in the colonization scheme.
I know that Rosicrucianism today holds Bacon in highest esteem as an active transmitter of the secrets. He's a demigod in Rosicrucianism.
But Bacon's influence was not confined to Rosicrucianism. He is considered by some to have been the first to formalize the mystery teachings into a system now recognized as modern Masonry. This international society would also come to the New World. And while Bacon's Rosicrucians would maintain a position of careful anonymity, the Order of Masonry would stretch its hands in America to the very heights of power. Nowhere is the Masonic presence more clearly seen than in the design of America's capital city, Washington, D.C.
Yes, Washington, D.C. is completely based on Masonic architecture.
The whole architecture is laid out in an occult manner with Masonic symbology. Every major building in Washington, D.C. has a Masonic plaque on it. I mean, the Masons have permeated, and the other secret societies have permeated our society since the very beginning.
If you either look at the map of Washington, D.C. or try and drive in Washington, D.C., you think it must have been designed by a nutcase. But actually it was designed by a Freemason, a French Freemason named L'Enfant. I think Pierre Charles L'Enfant was his name. And it's full of esoteric symbolism.
Ovison writes that, like the pyramids of Egypt, the entire city was built in alignment with the stars, and suggests that the hidden purpose for the Masonic rituals is that America might be empowered by the gods of the ancient world. Can this be the reason for the pagan god and goddess images that have come to represent America? Tradition often claims that America was founded as a Christian nation only. But if this is the case, why are its symbols those of the pagan religions, rather than images of Christ, the apostles, and stories from the Bible?
The Washington Monument is an obvious phallic symbol. The Vesica Pisces paths surrounding the obelisk suggest female. Taken together, the symbols represent the joining of Osiris and Isis and the conception of the sun god Horus. But take a look at what is above the elevator that goes up the shaft of the Washington Monument. Right above the elevator doors, there is a bronze sculpture of George Washington, sculpted by French Freemason Houdon, and above that is the winged disc of Horus. What in the world does this Egyptian solar symbol have to do with America? It's a clue to the secret meaning of the obelisk, in the most public of places, but how many actually see it and understand? The dimensions of the monument are all 6s and 5s. What an amazing coincidence that 6,660 inches equals 555 feet. We'll decipher the meaning of 6s and 5s in Egypt.
Its enchanted stone walls have stood strong through the ages.
There's no one up here. Yeah. This elevator will slow down considerably and the lights will go out. And you'll be able to look out and see some of our commemorative steps, all given in honor of George Washington. So here's the first slowdown. Yeah, you can go up and look. Just don't lean on the glass. But you can kind of look out there. See, all 50 states are represented. Numerous countries, cities, civics groups, Masonic lodges. The Vatican sent a stone.
It was Manly Hall who influenced the placement of 72 stones on the Great Pyramid of the dollar bill, since the number 72 is said to be a magical number in the occult. It was also Hall who taught that the American eagle was a cleverly disguised phoenix bird. In his writings, he documents this account from the 1st century A.D. There is a certain bird which is called a phoenix, and when the time of its dissolution draws near that it must die, it builds itself a nest. Could this somehow be a veiled reference to the secret destiny of America? Many researchers have come to believe that the plan of these Luciferian societies is that, like the phoenix of old, the America that we know will ultimately be destroyed, and that from her ashes will be born a new world order.
A series of original stories by writer J.K. Rowling. Far across the oceans, the official story is never the whole story. History has many secrets.
J.K. Rowling herself, who is the author, says that she took more than a third of the research and the content of these so-called fantasy books from occult research. So she has drawn from history, she has drawn from mythology, she admits that she has drawn from the religions of Celtic, Druidic, Satanic, Wiccan, pagan roots, and written them into her fiction books.
Weathering powerful storms, look beyond the surface, and you will find another world, a secret world where magic is real, running parallel to our own. Witchcraft and wizardry, and the magical Congress of the United States of America. These aren't myths you thought you knew. Magic in North America. Everything you think you know is about to change.
slavery for 400 years? For 400 years? That sounds like a choice.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. A choice.
And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come on thee, and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
That sounds like a choice.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenedst not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder.
In front of me is the Zander Van Bible Dictionary. And I discovered in this dictionary the definition of Ham and who his descendants are.
And it says, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites, Genesis 10:6-20.
But who else are the real Shemites? Torah-keeping Jews worldwide that are the true Shemites, just like the Yemenite Jews and the black African Shemites. And I most probably shouldn't go here, but I will anyway. You see, after the destruction of the temple, yes, many of the Jews, the poor Jews, remained in the land, but there was a migration as well of the more affluent Jews to Yemen and to other parts of Africa. You see, the black African Shemites were actually then taken away in slave ships. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68.
Samuel Moetti is president of the Lemba Cultural Association.
Pleasure. So, I'll be honest, I came into this village and the first word I heard was shalom,
Yes.
a Hebrew word.
Yes.
How is that possible? How is it that the Lemba are speaking Hebrew?
The Lembas are the original Hebrews, and they were scattered, as you know, and they crossed into Africa. So they were scattered all over.
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods.
So the Lembas claim to be descendants of ancient Israelites?
Not claim, they are.
They are?
They are.
Okay. It sounds to me like the Lemba have a unique culture surrounded by others who do not practice the same way.
That is correct.
These people, who to the casual observer look just like the other African communities they live among, actually do have DNA passed down from Middle Eastern forefathers. This proves that when it comes to race, looks really can be deceiving.
So the genetic testing actually proved to the doubters what you and your forefathers have been saying for generations. That must be exciting news.
It is.
I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of the Lemba. I knew very little about the people. But having spent time making the journey from Jerusalem down through Zimbabwe, having spent time here at this festival, seeing what your people are all about, I can only sum it up in one word, and it's shalom.
Shalom.
We've seen how science has backed up the claims of the Lemba in the face of years of doubt and prejudice. The archaeological clues, the DNA evidence, and the Lemba's own oral history add up to a very convincing argument.
When we join the priesthood together as Joseph's coat, we're victorious. Then we're victorious over the New World Order slavers, their Luciferic, Levitical perversion. You see, they're obsessed with blood. They're obsessed with their own blood, and they're obsessed with your blood. But they're not obsessed with Yahusha's blood.
Throughout the Bible, the olive tree is used to represent not only the nation of Israel, but the tribe of Judah.
Although to the vast majority of Americans, the olive branch in the hand of the eagle is a symbol of peace, but to the initiates of the occult brotherhoods, the olive branch in the claw of the phoenix is none other than the lost tribe of Judah. The Luciferians plan to use America and this olive branch to create a phoenix nest, so it may be consumed by feathers of flame as a burnt offering. They believe that their Antichrist beast will rise from the ashes, but the Most High Yahuwah and His Son Yahshua HaMashiach have other plans.
And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance.